Hey everyone, this is Jessica from Well Hello Cookie. Today I'm going to be going over how to decorate the cookies in the Halloween DIY box. First, we're going to go through the supplies that you will need. Most of them you were given in your box. However, we do need you to get a pair of scissors. I have a wooden stick, but you can use a toothpick, and a paper towel for wiping off icing. You should have your sprinkles bag, 4 bags of icing, and 3 cookies ready to go in your kit. The first thing we're going to do is take those scissors and we're going to cut open each bag of cookies. I do it by pushing the cookie to the side and cutting the bag open and bringing the cookie out. Next, we're going to grab that sprinkles bag. Make sure you have the sprinkles at the bottom when you cut it so they don't pour out. And then kind of set them to the side and open them up. That way they will stay sitting sturdy by themselves. The next thing we're going to do is grab those icing bags and massage them. The ingredients will separate once the icing has been sitting there for a few days, so we want to get them good and mixed up again. So if you need to pause the video now to take the time to massage your bags, go ahead. The next thing we're going to do is get that practice sheet out. Today I'm going to be using the pumpkin color or orange color icing. I'm going to show you how to cut this tip. You want to find the seam and you want to flatten it on top. The key to flattening on top is making sure you press down all the way and then cut a small opening. It is always better to start small and you can increase the size of your hole. But again, my icing has been sitting for a while, so it may be more liquidy. So I want to make sure I have a small hole. As you see, whenever I push on my bag or apply pressure, icing comes out. When I stop, the icing stops. So as we practice our line, we're going to put pressure on the bag, lift our bag up. Sometimes it will break. That means I'm not applying enough pressure. And then when I get to the end of my line, I'm going to stop applying pressure and the icing will stop. So let's go ahead and practice our 3 lines. Now we're going to move on to our circle. As you see from the circle, I like to start at the top and then I use my wrist mostly to rotate around. Again, I am not applying enough pressure here. This icing is pretty liquidy, so I'm trying to not push too hard so I can control it as it comes out. Then I do the big circle the same way. I use my wrist to guide me through the circle. As we move on to the witch's hat, this is a little different. I do a lot of start and stops here because I want fine lines. So I will start my icing, put pressure, and then I will stop and then pick up my icing bag and start again. Before we get started, if you decide that any of your icing bags are too soupy, you can add some powdered sugar to them and use a Ziploc bag as your icing bag. It's the same process. You'll find the seam and cut the tip. Now we are going to go through and cut all the tips of our icing bag to get ready to start decorating. Remember, you want to find the seam, flatten it down, and cut a small hole. Remember to start small. You can always cut the hole larger. Now that we have all three of our cookies laid out, we are going to put the pumpkin and the spider web to the side for right now. We are going to start with the cauldron. I'm going to start by outlining the entire pot first. As you will see, I'm using that stop and start motion a lot with the pot as it has a lot of corners. Making that start and stop will give you a crisp edge so that when you start flooding, you have a defined area where the icing will stop. Now that we've outlined the main portion of the pot, I'm going to do a half smiley face from corner to corner at the top of the pot so I have an area for my witch's brew. Now that we've outlined the witch's cauldron, we are going to switch to the spider web. I am going to use the same black icing to outline the corners of the spider web. Again, you will use that stop and start motion. You also will use the wrist motion that you use with the circle since you're drawing almost half circles or smaller smiles. Now that we have finished outlining our spider web, let's go ahead and grab that pumpkin. Now remember at the beginning of the video, I said my orange is pretty liquidy because it sat out for a while. You have the option of sticking it back in the fridge to firm it up. I'm going to go ahead and work with it. As you can see, I'm applying light pressure as I outline my pumpkin. This way I'm able to control the icing even though it might be a little bit more wet than intended. Thing we're going to do is outline the face of the jack-o'-lantern. Again, I'm applying low pressure as I outline each part of the face.
You shouldn't make the dye yellow like it's a jack-o'-lantern.
Yeah, it's hard to see.
You should have.
So now I'm going to grab my wooden tool. You can also grab your toothpick as we learn to flood the inside of this witch's cauldron. I like to leave a little bit of an edge as I fill it in. Now you can apply more pressure as you fill in this cauldron. The reason why I leave little gaps is because I don't want the icing to spill over the edge. I will show you in just a minute how to use your wooden tool or your toothpick to flood all the way to the edge. Now I'm going to grab my wooden tool and in a circular motion, I'm going to work that icing up to the edge of the outline that we did previously. I will work over each area going in a circular motion, pushing the icing to the edge, but also making the icing smooth at the same time. That way I can have that smooth surface, and the reason why we love working with royal icing so much. Once I'm done working that royal icing, I'm going to get my paper towel and I'm going to wipe off the additional icing on my wooden stick. Then I'm going to move my cauldron off to the side to make sure I don't accidentally bump it. And we're going to go ahead and bring down that spiderweb cookie. You're going to need to grab your wooden tool or your toothpick again, and also your white bag of icing. We are going to be flooding this cookie with white. I always like to test a little bit when I'm flooding. I will push down on my white icing bag to see what the flow is, to know how much pressure I need to apply. Again, this icing is a little bit liquidy as well, so I'm going to give space to the edge of my cookie as I push the icing down to flood this cookie. Then I'm going to take this wooden tool and I'm going to work the icing to the edge. I can see I still have a lot of gaps, so I'm probably going to add a little bit more icing as I work the icing to the edge to make sure that I end up covering this whole cookie. Now that my cookie is filled, I'm going to grab the black icing bag. I'm going to start by putting a dot in the center, and then I'm going to make circles around this dot. This is going to help us get the desired spider web effect that we are wanting from this cookie. Once I have done these circles, I'm going to grab my wooden tool again, and I will use that wooden tool, and I will start in the center of the cookie where the black dot is. And I'm going to take that wooden tool and drag it to each corner of the cookie. Now that we have finished our spiderweb cookie, I'm going to push that to the top and grab that pumpkin cookie, and I'm going to begin filling that as well. Again, applying a little bit more pressure since we have a large area, but still keeping the icing away from the edge since it is more liquidy. And I will use my wooden tool to work that icing to the edge instead of going up to the edge and possibly spilling over. When I go around the eyes and the mouth and the nose, I will apply less pressure because I don't want to cover up any more of the black jack-o'-lantern face. Once you're done flooding all your cookies, you can put them to the side and wait to have them dry a little bit before you go on to the next step, or you're more than welcome to do the next thing. We're gonna grab that purple to add to the cauldron so it looks like our witch's brew. You're gonna fill the top of the cauldron and then you're gonna put some sprinkles on it. I always like to just grab a pinch and put it on top, or you can grab a lot and put it on top. Once I'm done adding my sprinkles, I'm gonna add a few more little droplets like it's coming off the cauldron. Then I'm gonna go ahead and add some more of the purple at the edge of the cauldron so it really looks like the witch's brew is bubbling over. I'm gonna put up the witch's cauldron and grab my pumpkin. I'm gonna grab my black icing. I'm gonna squeeze out a little bit just because it's been a little bit since I've used it. I'm gonna go up and down to make a stem for my pumpkin. The last thing I'm gonna do is grab my spider web. I'm gonna take the purple icing and I'm gonna hold my bag up and down and I'm gonna push to make a mound of icing as it builds up, and that is gonna be the body of my spider. Then I'm gonna do a little head. In a perfect world, we would wait to let this dry so it would harden before we add the legs, but I'm just gonna go ahead and add 8 spider legs by applying little pressure and stringing out some icing. Once you're done decorating your cookies, you can place them in front of a fan to dry faster, or you can leave them overnight for 8 to 12 hours and they will be stackable. Thank you for joining Well Hello Cookie for our first DIY box. We will be starting full class boxes for Detailed Cookie next month in November. Check the website for dates and don't forget to subscribe. Have a sweet day.